All right, let's dive into what is, without a doubt, one of the most chilling and flat-out bizarre unresolved mysteries of the 20th century. It's a story about a deadly expedition that even after 60 years has left everyone who looks into it completely baffled. We're talking about the Dyatlov Pass Incident.
Okay, picture this. It's February 1959. We're deep in the Soviet Union, in the harsh, unforgiving Ural Mountains. The specific place? A remote peak with a name that just sends a shiver down your spine. Kholat Syakhl. You know what that means in the local language? The Dead Mountain. Yeah. Ominous, right?
So a group of 9, and I mean skilled, prepared hikers, they head out for a really ambitious trek right into this wilderness, and they just never came back. It all boils down to one single haunting question. What in the world happened up there on what we now call Dyatlov Pass?
Now, to really get why this mystery is so deep, you have to understand who these people were. And trust me, these were not your average weekend campers. Not even close.
So the group was led by a guy named Igor Dyatlov, hence the name of the incident. And get this, every single one of them was an expert skier and hiker. They all had what's called a Grade 2 certification, but they were aiming for a Grade 3 expedition that was literally the highest, most difficult rating you could get in the Soviet Union back then. So to be clear, these were absolute pros. They knew how to survive in exactly these kinds of brutal conditions.
Okay, so let's look at their plan. Everything seemed pretty straightforward. They were supposed to finish up and send a telegram back home by February 12th. Well, the 12th came and went, no telegram. Their families started getting really worried, but a search party wasn't officially sent out until February 20th. That's a full 8 days late. A lot can happen in 8 days out there.
So when that search party finally gets to where the team was supposed to be, what they find is, well, it's the start of the whole mystery. An abandoned camp. And the stuff they found there, it didn't solve anything, it just made things 100 times more confusing.
This is where things get really, really weird. I mean, none of this makes any sense. First, their tent, it was sliced open, but from the inside. Why would they do that? And then you look inside, and all their gear, their boots, their heavy winter coats, all their supplies, was just left there. No signs of the struggle, no tracks from anyone else. The only thing they found were 8 or 9 sets of footprints leading away from the tent, and some of them were just in socks or completely barefoot. Barefoot in the Siberian winter.
So you have to ask yourself, right? This is the question that just hangs over this entire case. What could possibly make 9 survival experts, people who know better than anyone, cut their way out of their only shelter and run out into the deadly cold without their gear? It's basically a death sentence. It makes absolutely no sense.
And the mystery just gets deeper from here. The search party followed those footprints into the woods, and the things they found, well, the discoveries came in 2 separate, horrifying stages. It paints a picture of pure terror and some kind of violence that's just impossible to explain.
So first they find 5 of the hikers. They're scattered between the camp and a big tree about a mile down the slope. But that's it. The other 4 are just gone. It actually took over 2 more months, waiting for the snow to melt, before they finally found the last 4 hikers buried deep in the snow in a ravine.
And this, right here, is where the story shifts from a terrible tragedy into a deep, dark mystery. See, those first 5 bodies? The official cause of death was hypothermia. Makes sense, right? They were underdressed, they froze to death. Sad, but logical. But the last 4, the ones in the ravine? Whoa, a completely different story. They had massive, catastrophic internal injuries. We're talking crushed chests, fractured skulls, but here's the kicker. Almost no external wounds. Nothing on the outside to explain what happened on the inside.
Yeah, the lead medical examiner even said it himself. He said the force of the blows had been too strong for any human being to have inflicted. Just think about that. Whatever did this to them, it wasn't a person. The force was just too immense.
To give you an idea of what we're talking about, they compared the force needed to cause those injuries to being hit by a car, a pressure of over 1,500 pounds. So, again, what is out there in the middle of nowhere that can do that to a person?
And just when you think this can't get any stranger, it does. There were 2 final clues that are just baffling. First, one of the women in the group was found missing her tongue and her eyes. And second, when they tested some of their clothing, they found high levels of radioactive contamination. Now, how do you explain that? That doesn't sound like a natural cause, does it?
So, with all this completely contradictory and frankly
bizarre evidence, it's no shock that the official investigation didn't really solve anything. It just opened the door for decades of questions and wild speculation.
Unsurprisingly, the Soviet authorities shut the case down pretty fast, back in May of '59. And their official conclusion? Get this. The hikers died from an unknown compelling natural force. I mean, what does that even mean? It's basically the official way of saying we have absolutely no clue what happened here.
So, okay, what could that compelling natural force be? Well, the leading scientific theory is something called a slab avalanche. Basically, a big, heavy plate of snow slides down all at once. The theory goes that the weight of it crushed the hikers inside the tent. That's where the internal injuries came from, and the panicked survivors had to cut their way out and run for it. It kind of makes sense, but the big problem is that investigators at the scene said there wasn't really any evidence of a big avalanche.
But then there's the other side of the coin, a much more sinister theory. Remember that radiation on their clothes? And remember how other people in the area reported seeing strange orange lights in the sky that night? Well, that's led a lot of people to believe the hikers just stumbled into the wrong place at the wrong time, right into the middle of a secret Soviet weapons test. Maybe they were killed by the blast, or maybe they were silenced so they couldn't talk about what they saw.
Here we are, more than 60 years later, and the key files on this case are still sealed. The whole story is just a mountain of silence. So when you put it all together, the tent cut from the inside, those insane injuries, the radiation, what do you think? What do you believe really happened on the Dead Mountain?